Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba. We got another video coming out today because the Jacksonville Jaguars, I appreciate this, honestly, the way they did this, because I don't think any teams have put out a whole list of head coach candidates they are interviewing. Maybe I'm wrong, but they have this nice graphic for us to look at the people they're going to be talking to potentially be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know we're coming off a day where there's a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration. A lot of that's still here, right? And it seems as if Shad Khan's loyalty to Trent Baalke above everything else, is going to probably outweigh someone coming in saying they want their own guy. It feels that way because we've seen that before. It is possible it doesn't turn out that way. We're going to have to see what happens. But looking at this list, there's some guys on here that honestly I think would be great head coach candidates. They're not all perfect fits necessarily for Jacksonville, but I think a lot of these are some of the top candidates. You look at Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, for example. There's two names that are very high on the list that you want for Jacksonville because they're young, innovative offensive minds, guys who would be around here for a long time and bring in a scheme that ultimately should get so much more out of this offense, and most importantly, to help Trevor Lawrence to finally succeed and be the franchise quarterback he's supposed to be. You look at what Cohen has done with Baker Mayfield this year. With the Bucs offense that's lost a lot of players throughout the season. Mike Evans was out for almost a month, I think. Chris Godwin out for the season halfway through. And they've found a way to get other guys to step up in that offense. They've had an incredible running game. They've had arguably one of the best running backs in a rookie this year, in Bucky Irving, and what they've done with him and how they've used all those players. So Liam Cohen, phenomenal candidate for the Jaguars. And Ben Johnson, and we talked about him a lot here. You look at what he did with Jared Goff. He wasn't there, of course, the whole time, but he was there for much of the glow-up that Jared Goff has had. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in recent years, and just, sorry, still coughing a lot, just got paid like it recently. So, with, with Ben Johnson, you have that track record. You look at the scheming on offense. He's someone who I think easily fits what Shad Khan mentioned yesterday with unpredictability, which, to be fair, you want to mix that with reason. There's got to be a reason for being unpredictable. You can't just be chaos all the time because it's not going to work. But Ben Johnson is someone who does that very well. And he's someone who has gotten the most out of a group of players that, there's a lot of talent on that offensive line, but you've seen him develop guys like Jamison Williams recently. Tim Patrick has come in and had a good season there. Did a phenomenal job with what David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have done in their careers. Montgomery, obviously, being a far better player than he had been before with Chicago. Ben Johnson's just an obvious name that you would love to get to Jacksonville for what he could do and the priorities with him along the offensive line. Now, some of these other names, I'm not going to go super in-depth with because I need to do more research on them, I'll be honest. And if I did my research, this video would be coming out a lot later today. And I'm sure we'll talk about all of them throughout the process. But some of the other bigger names, right? Yeah, Joe Brady. He's kind of the third of the Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen grouping. He's the younger, innovative offensive mind for the Buffalo Bills. Now, don't hear as much about him, but what he's done with a group of receivers that's either young or has not really had to step up in the past, with Josh Allen throwing to that group, with that offense in general, that it was expected they would take a step back this year. The Bills were not thought to be Super Bowl champions necessarily, and obviously they never won a Super Bowl. We'll have to see what happens in the playoffs, but this is a team that's far outperformed expectations, and a large part of that is what Joe Brady has done for that offense and making things work. I mean, we watched them put up 47 points on Jacksonville earlier this year. So, I guess last year now, since it's 2025. So, this is another guy who I think you definitely got to bring in for an interview. You got to talk to and pick his brain on what you would do here. I think it makes a lot of sense. Todd Monken is another, I believe, offensive mind. So you like to see that. He's done a good job with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm actually going to really quickly make sure I got that right. I believe he's the OC. Yeah, offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. Don't want to look like too much of an idiot here. Obviously, Baltimore's done a phenomenal job this year. They've been, having Lamar Jackson win MVP basically every year at this point, other than when Mahomes has like an average season, and then of course they give it to him. But Todd Monken has done a phenomenal job there with that offense, and he is a very good candidate as well. And he was mentioned before the Week 18 game as that third guy in what Jacksonville was likely to do, which give that some perspective, because this was the Mio O'Brien take we were talking about on Saturday, where it was supposed to be like a 98% chance that Trent Baalke's out of here, right? It's not supposed to be here. So that was part of the take in the whole conversation. But Todd Monken was the name mentioned behind Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen for this job. So some stuff to know about him. Kellen Moore, he's someone who's kind of been on this radar for a long time. He's bounced around the NFL a bit. A lot of it just being in poor situations. We'll take a look really quick at his history in the NFL just through Wikipedia. It'll show all his places he's been. He's been offensive coordinator for a few different places. So you had the Dallas Cowboys from 2019 to 2022. Gets fired, I believe, in 2022. Immediately gets a job with the Chargers in 2023. And this is the Brandon Staley year, where he ends up getting canned again. And then you go to 2024, and now he's with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's someone who, he's really young. He's 36, but he has been a pretty good offensive coordinator in the NFL. Now, the question is he a head coach? And that's a question for a lot of these guys. You can ask that about Brady, Cohen, Johnson, all those people. I think it makes sense to ask that question, because you can be a great offensive coordinator and maybe not be the leader of men that you need to be to lead a team. But, Kellen Moore, I think that's a very fair name to put on a list of 8 guys to bring down here and interview for the job. So I am good with that. We'll get to the last 3 at the bottom of this list. You got your defensive-minded guys here. So Aaron Glenn, to me, of the 3, he's the top one. He's the one that I would see as the logical best defensive-minded head coach you can. Now, of course, the problem is, do you want a defensive-minded head coach? Because if you're bringing in someone like that, your issue is that, to me, the top priority for the long-term success of the team is to get Trevor Lawrence right. And you may bring in an OC that works out really well this year. You may get like what Cliff Kingsbury has done for the Commanders, for example. However, you know what the Commanders have to worry about is Cliff Kingsbury leaving that team. And then if he leaves that team, they got to hit that position again. I would way rather be in a situation where I have to keep replacing on the defensive side of the ball, because I think you're always going to have pretty good candidates available there. Whereas on the offensive side, I don't think it's always that way. I think it's more important to have continuity there and to have that be where your structure comes from. So that's the problem, I think, for me with a lot of these guys. Now, could they be good head coaches? Sure. I don't know as much about Graham or Saleh, I would say that. But Aaron Glenn, I think he's going to be a good head coach. I think he's going to be a very good one. And if he gets the right quarterback in there, he's going to be phenomenal for another team. I think you're looking at teams like the Saints and the Jets. But this is a name that I think it makes a lot of sense to bring down to Jacksonville in an interview. He is a former player of the Jaguars. I believe he was here for 1 year. So that's pretty cool. But what Aaron Glenn has done with the Detroit defense this year that they've lost basically everything, right? It it's been very impressive. This is still a defense that's done pretty well for the players they have on the field. More than that, for the players they have on the field. Um, he's someone who's absolutely outperformed his position. I've listened to interviews with him. He's a leader of men. He's the kind of guy that you want to set the culture for an organization. I think that would be great for Jacksonville. It's just always going to be that question of what's the offensive side of the ball going to look like? Who's going to be leading that? Now, Patrick Graham, actually, I had to look up this name because I've never heard of Patrick Graham. He is the the Las Vegas Raiders defensive coordinator. We'll take a look really quick at his history in the NFL. So he has been much of his time with the New England Patriots in different roles on the defensive side, a lot of different positions. Eventually went to the Giants, Packers, Dolphins, back to the Giants, and now he's been with the Raiders for a few years. Now, what kind of gives me some reserve here, I went to PFF because I was curious where they ranked this year, because I don't think they've been very good. You look at the Raiders' defense, they're third in the NFL. So I think this is someone, I'm guessing, because I haven't actually listened to him or anything yet, that is probably more so a leader type of person than necessarily like a great schemer or like an X's and O's guys as much. Not that he knows nothing about that, right? I don't want to sit here and say the guy's stupid, but that would be my guess for why he's getting an interview. He's definitely out of this list, I would say, the weakest candidate, just because I don't see why he's getting a head coach interview. I even saw stuff where he's getting DC interviews with other teams or being requested for that. So is he someone who really should be in this? I don't think so personally, but he is on the list. And then we'll finish off with Robert Saleh. Now, we've heard a lot about Robert Saleh at Jacksonville. He just hasn't been for head coach. And obviously, as you see up here, these are for head coach vacancies. So I think it's interesting because you've got someone like Liam Cohen on here who's been rumored to want to bring in Robert Saleh as his DC. So it's interesting to me. I think Saleh, if you're bringing him in to be the defensive coordinator, I think he could be very good in that role. He would be one of my top candidates. And for most people, I think he is the top candidate. But as a head coach, I think that what happened with the Jets is unfortunate, right? And there's some things that are his fault, some that aren't. It's an organization that, just like Jacksonville, has a lot of problems. There's very different problems up there. Ultimately, for them, it came down to they could not get a quarterback. And that's the good thing for Saleh coming here, is that, hey, I got my quarterback. I have Trevor Lawrence. I got the guy that I couldn't get because I was picking at number 2. I had to take Zach Wilson. That may be a good thing for Robert Saleh and make him want this job really bad. That's not a good thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, though, because how good is Robert Saleh going to be for Trevor Lawrence, which is your top priority at this point? So for Robert Saleh, hey, I like the guy. I got nothing against him. I just don't think he would be my head coach choice. I'm okay with them interviewing him, but I think if you want to bring him in, it's more of a focus on DC, and I think at some point you'd probably bring him back in the building after and offer him the job or say something, depending on if the head coach we bring in wants to have control over the defensive coordinator, or if Trent Baalke does, or if it's like a collaborative interview process, whatever happens. Who knows at this point. But this is your list of guys. And I want to finish this off with just, look, I don't have a ton of hope right for Jacksonville not only getting this right, but putting the head coach in the right situation. It's entirely possible that you get a good head coach, but you put them with Trent Baalke again, and then they're going to struggle because Baalke has gotten every single person he's ever worked with fired at that position. It's very possible. But looking at this list and who would work with Trent Baalke, who would be willing, how people view it, I think it's very clear that the very top candidates would not do it. And Jacksonville will probably be put in a situation where they're going to get told at interviews, Shad Khan's going to be told that if you want me, that me would be one of the top candidates like a Liam Cohen, a Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn, that I need to choose my GM. I need organizational alignment. I need someone who's going to see things the same way I do. We cannot be working independently of each other, which is what Trent Baalke has done. He'll bring in a guy, he'll do whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't give a crap about what they're actually wanting from him. He's going to go draft the guy with long arms and all the traits, but at the end of the day, what's showing up on the field, that's the problem. And then he's going to get that person fired and say, well, the talent's here. His players are surely capable. They don't fit together at all, but they're capable. So I think that's the sliver of hope you have, is that the people who are likely to impress the most are probably going to make it very clear that they're not going to work with Trent Baalke for the fear of their own careers and having the organizational alignment to do things right, because it is so imperative that your GM and your head coach have to see the identity of the team the same, the way they're going to build this thing out the same. There has to be good communication. You cannot go into this and have two different ideas here. Because if you brought in, say for example, let's say Ben Johnson really did take the job. We know he's not going to, Trent Baalke. But if he did, Ben Johnson would immediately be failed by Trent Baalke. Because the first thing you think for Ben Johnson, you need a great offensive line. That's a lot of why they're able to do the things they do. Is Trent Baalke going to invest in that? Is he going to go get guys who are good run blockers? No, he hasn't done that his whole time here. Look at this offensive line. Look at the people on it. All they care about is pass protection. That doesn't work with what Ben Johnson wants to do. So immediately, you're going to put your head coach in a situation where you're going to take away perhaps the most important thing that he needs. So I think you look at these top candidates. I don't think they'll work with Trent Baalke. I think you're in a spot where this probably comes down to the job being offered once again to someone who asked for the GM to move aside, and Shad Khan has to make the decision. Am I going to choose Trent Baalke over the next, hopefully, great coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars? And you have to pray to God that a guy who, honestly, at this point, has shown he has no idea what's going on because his sources are terrible. The people he listens to are trying to save their skin. You have to hope that that guy makes the right decision. That's what's really scary about this. But I will say this at least. This is a good list of candidates. You hope it's some more than others. And we'll have to see what happens. But I am happy to at least see that these people are going to be listened to. And that there is that little bit of a chance. We'll let it play out. We'll see what happens. And we'll just pray to God that something good comes out of this. And it's a future with a GM and a head coach that are new to this team, that have earned the job, and are aligned on their vision for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, with that all said, I appreciate y'all watching. I want to shout out our channel members, Premier Nasir 904, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 500, gosh dang it, Scrubber Ducky 500, and Brian Foster. Almost got through the rest of it without coughing. But I appreciate all your support. Appreciate you guys commenting on these videos and watching. We've had a lot of subscribers come in recently. I'm very thankful for that. It's part of the off season. Unfortunately, I wish it could be for better things, right? Because you want to see this team in the playoffs. You want to see them with great leadership. You want to see them winning Super Bowls. We aren't there. It's hard to see how they get there. But the good thing is that if things are going to change, it's going to happen very soon. Or we'll know it's not going to happen, and we can wait till it happens way out there. And actually, that's not really a good thing. But the first part was. So with that all said, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And finally, go Jags.